I'm Justyna and I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at the Museum of Classical Archaeology in Cambridge, and this video is part of the Museum Remix Unheard project. The object I will be talking about is part of the west pediment of the Temple of Zeus at Olympia. It's a statue of a woman elbowing a centaur in the face. So it's part of a larger sculptural group that stood on top of the Temple of Zeus in Olympia. A pediment is the triangle on top of a Greek temple. It's a plaster cast of a marble original. The original is now in the Olympia Museum. The whole pedimental group is over 24 meters long, but our particular sculpture of the woman is about 2 meters tall, which is slightly higher than the average human. She's one of the women fighting off centaurs in this sculptural group, which is important to note. So what's happening here is the centaur has an arm wrapped around her waist, and she seems to be trying to extract that hand and the other hand that's on her breast, and that's where the elbowing in the face is happening. The pediment is described as a centauromachy, which means a battle between Lapis and the centaurs. And the story is quite simple. The centaurs are invited to a wedding, they get drunk, they try to kidnap the women, and a battle ensues. So I picked this object because we never talk about the women in the story. We don't know about their reaction, we don't hear about their involvement in the battle, we don't hear from them. It's a common issue in classical reception where women get raped or kidnapped as a catalyst for male heroism. So not in the ancient sources that tell us about the myth or the pediment, and not in modern scholarship are the women talked about, which is interesting given that there's a woman elbowing someone in the face in this sculptural group, yet nothing in modern scholarship wants to talk about that. Instead, lots of people focus on which man in this group is Perithous and which one is Theseus, which are the two main heroes in the story. We rarely hear about the actions of Deidamia, who is the bride in the story as well. So even in our own museum label, which was written before the current team was in residence and definitely was written by a man, it says that the centaurs are trying to abduct the women, and then it says Lapith women watch anxiously from the corners of the pediment. And now there are two women in the corners of the pediment watching anxiously, but the woman we're looking at now, who's elbowing a centaur in the face, is definitely not watching anxiously. It's a complete erasure of the women fighting and defending themselves on the pediment. We have a marble pediment, which you can see that the women are there fighting, and yet we still don't talk about that. So this is the key here. The women in Greek myth are there, and they are there in art, but we don't talk about that and we don't hear from them. We ignore the role of the women. We focus on the battle of the men and the centaurs, which is a part actually of a bigger problem in classical reception, and that's of authors, scholars, and audiences referring to rape as seduction, or using the words rape and kidnapping interchangeably as if they're the same thing. Our label again is guilty of saying abduction, and it doesn't give any hint even that the motivation of the centaurs might be rape. We don't hear about the perspective of the women at all, but we do hear about the perspective of the heroic men who, have a battle. So you might want to think about, how can we give voice to this woman? We can also think about how this myth compares to classical reception of the myth of Helen of Troy, where often in modern paintings, you will have Helen walking along Paris, and the painting will be entitled The Rape of Helen. Just a lot to unpack there. But we can also talk about why are we so reluctant to engage with the idea of the women here taking part in this battle. But these are just some suggestions. You can do your own thing. Happy remixing.